Good afternoon, children. For the benefit of those outside the DPS Bangalore East family watching us live on YouTube, this is Preeti Sutra, Vice Principal, DPS Bangalore East. On behalf of our principal, Mrs. Manila Carvalho, as well as the Department of Psychology at Delhi Public School Bangalore East, I welcome each one of you to Think 2020, Nurturing the Mind, Body, and Soul. This is our endeavor to promote mental well being of all stakeholders that make up our learning community. It is truly wonderful to have this session packed with youngsters between the age group 14 to 18 years. As we do realize the core role that mental and emotional well being play in your personal growth, as well as your educational journey, and also how it helps build resilience during adversity. In every adversity lies an opportunity that can be harnessed with the right attitude. And what exactly is this right attitude? It is the attitude of staying positive and staying optimistic in every single situation. I quote Benjamin Franklin: while we may not be able to control all that happens to us, we can definitely control what happens inside us. On this note, I wish to introduce you to our guest speaker for the Seeing Life Through an Optimistic Lens, Miss Alina Ali. A very warm welcome. Miss Alina is an expressive arts therapist with the Department of Mental Health and Behavioral Sciences, Fortis Healthcare. She has completed her bachelor's and master's in psychology and also holds a UNESCO CID certified degree in expressive arts. She works extensively with children and adults in the field of psychotherapy and psychosocial care using art based interventions. Furthermore, she conducts life skills and mental health workshops across schools and organizations. A very warm welcome to you, Miss Alina. We are indeed very, very delighted to have you here amidst us. And without any further ado, I hand over to you so that you can help us discover the power of optimism. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for those kind words. Uh, Hello, a very good afternoon to everyone, all the students, teachers, and the rest of the participants here who've joined us today. Uh, I am Alina Ali. I am a psychologist working with Fortis Healthcare, and one of the main reasons we believe in holding workshops and these programs for school students is because we uh, understand the importance of mental health and emotional well-being, and we want that understanding to resonate throughout all communities, and especially with young individuals to understand and be able to deal better with their psychological well-being. So, yes, to begin with, the session for today is on optimism, something that I'm sure all of us students have heard of. I'm sure all of us have practiced it at some point, and I'm sure we know individuals, including ourselves, who we believe to be optimistic or not so optimistic sometimes. So, to begin with, I'd like to ask all the students here. I can see that we have a chat box right here. While you're all muted, if you could give me a little bit of an idea of your own understanding of the term optimism, what would that be? What do you think being optimistic means? Or who do we call an optimistic person? Oh, I'm getting lots of answers. Looking at the bright side, being positive, seeing good in every situation, positive thinking, positivity, lots of positivity, happiness, hopeful, being confident, yes, having a positive outlook, hope, expecting good things to happen, okay, finding the silver lining, seeking the bright side while being mindful of the negative. Very good, Avni. That's a very good answer. Trying to make the best of the situation, yes. So, thank you. Thank you so much for all of these answers. Having the ability to withstand any issue and being positive throughout various situations. Having confidence. Okay, great. Wonderful. Thank you, children, all of you, for the answers. And yes, all of them are correct. So we have lots of positivity, we have lots of happiness, we have lots of confidence, hopefulness, and an amalgamation of all of these things that we say and usually refer to as optimism. That's correct. Somebody over here also had a beautiful answer to give me that said that the ability to be able to be realistic and the ability to be able to be positive yet realistic. And that is something that I would want to stress upon a little later in the session today. Why I wanted to understand from all of you what optimism is, because on a day-to-day life we come across the term very often, but the implications or the impact that this perspective can have on our psychological well-being is something we might want to learn a little bit more about, right? The session for today is called, it's titled Life Through an Optimistic Lens. So I will take an example of the lens here. uh, the lens over here does not mean the physical lens, even though I will give that analogy. It means what we call the mind's lens, the perspective that we hold towards things, right? So, for example, if I were to tell you, I will give you two pairs of glasses here. One will be a transparent, white, clear pair of glasses. When you put that on, you will be able to see everything clearly and exactly how it is, right? And that's going to be the case with most of the people. I give you a pair of translucent, transparent glasses, you put it on, and you'll be able to see things clearly, right? Versus if I give you a pair of really dark black shades or goggles or glasses, something that has that black tint, do you think wearing those glasses will have kind of an impact on your sight or will make you look at things slightly differently? Probably yes. Why? Because the black tint on the glasses is going to bring about a change in your vision. It's going to make you look at things with a slightly darker tone than it actually is. Using this analogy to also understand and realize that sometimes having a bad day or going through a challenging time or feeling unpleasant or not so positive is only because of this black dark lens that we seem to be wearing, right? A lot of times when we face a problem or we face a challenging situation, there are lots of factors that we can look at to be able to understand and deal with the problem better. Number one is the problem itself, whether it's an exam, whether it's something in your social relationships, whether it's a fight with a loved one, whether it's internal stressors that we might be facing due to various problems, all the other reasons, right? One is the problem itself. How difficult, easy, prolonged, severe is the problem. Number two is our individual coping mechanism. How do we as people deal with problems? You might be somebody who believes in dealing with problems by themselves. I might be somebody who believes in taking the help of my loved ones because I feel like I work better when I have someone, you know, around me. And then it gives me more motivation, more encouragement to do my work or face the problem that I have. So, number two is the individual different strategies, coping mechanisms that we use to deal with the problem. And third is the perspective that we adopt. These three things are distinct. Problem could be same for you and I, different for you and I. Second, individual differences will obviously differ from person to person. And third, the perspective is also something that can very well be changed. It can be adopted, it can be acquired, and have an impact in the way we look at a problem or a challenge. In today's session, we will be focusing specifically on the third aspect of this, the perspective that we hold, hence the lens that we wear. Why I'm saying the lens that we wear can be acquired and it's a skill that we can all get equipped to, because a lot of times when we look at optimism and positivity, we tend to categorize ourselves into an optimistic person, a happy person, an unpleasant person, a pessimistic person, often not realizing that these are skills which, as I said, can very well be acquired. So maybe if you have been facing a challenging situation and you're unable to deal with it effectively, it's not because of the person you are. It may not even be because of the problem at hand. It may simply be because of the perspective or the lens that you're wearing, which is making you see the problem as much more challenging than it is, or which is making you see the problem as it is, but you're unable to tackle or understand or comprehend the problem because you're wearing the different kind of lens, right? Okay, let's go a step backwards before we move into optimism and positivity. Let's think about the various factors, or as I'd like to call the vectors that affect our day to day life. Even if before we go to a problem or a challenge, let's look at the general things that we focus on our day to day life that are a part of our day to day functioning, which have an impact in making our day a good day or a bad day. So if I were to ask you all, tell me, what do you think are the general things in your life which affect your mood, which affect your functioning, which affect your day? You can write in the chat box. I can start with me. I think getting my meals on time is something that can affect my mood. It can have an impact on my day. It can slightly change my mood. It can bring on a different kind of energy level to myself. It can make me feel more lethargic if I feel like I've missed a meal. So that is one thing. My eating habits is one thing that can affect. Weather, of course. Fights, sleep, climate, morning routine, definitely. Cleanliness, sleep routine, negativity around, yes. Friends' mood, okay. Video games, not getting expected results in exams, so your academics, of course. Expectations, environment, people around us, music, light, okay, people fighting, walking, not planning my day, getting scolded, relationships, people, weather, TV, okay, dance, okay, lots of things coming up. Again, thank you so much for sharing. And yes, all of these things can affect all of us, and some of these things can affect some of us, right? In general, if I were to give you an overview of the vectors that affect everyone's life, slightly more than the others, varying with people, is number one, our friendships and our relationships. So, as all of you mentioned, the fights with people, the having spent a good day with people, having spent a tiring and a taxing day with people, all of these things have an effect on our mood. So, number one, the friendships and the relationships. Number two, the peer and the school environment. So, your interactions, day to day interactions with your peers, of course, it would be more in effect if you were physically, going to school rather than having an online interaction. But even while we have an online interaction, the kind of classes that you have, the kind of schedules that you have for your day, your busy day versus an easy or a light day, all of these things can have an impact on our energy, on our moods, on our functioning. Then, as somebody mentioned, exam results. So, academics, everything to do with your studies, your exam time, the stress that comes before exam time, the routine during the academic, the exams, the moods, the affect that we have after our exams are over, right? So, that plays a role. Then your extracurricular activities, so the amount of physical activity that you have during your day, your leisure time activities, basketball, football, dancing, music, debates, you know anything else that you do along with friends to be able to have that extra bit of your day to go in a fruitful and a productive manner. So extracurricular activities. Then we have media consumption, something which has considerably been increased in the lockdown. So the kind of shows we watch, the kind of music you listen to, the kind of movies you watch, even the kind of news intake that you get from media can largely impact your day. Personally, for me, watching too much of negative news can also have an impact on my day and my mood. So I tend to, limit my news consumption through social media and other sources. And finally, your self concept. Your self concept over here is your idea about your own self. So, how well do you know yourself? How well do you understand yourself? How well do you acknowledge your achievements? How well are you mindful of your, say, limitations or weaknesses? And how well do you regulate your own behavior? All of these things, self understanding, self confidence, self esteem, self regulatory behavior, all of these things come under your self concept. So the way you view yourself can also largely have an impact on your moods and your functioning, and also in your perspective building. To highlight this with the help of an example, I'll tell you. Say, suppose I am somebody who feels really conscious of my dancing. So even though I might be a great dancer, I'm someone who feels really shy in front of people, and I feel like, you know what, other people are much better than me, and I'm not that great at dance. In such a situation, if I have a dance competition coming up, or if I have, a stage performance coming up, If I am feeling good about myself, if I am confident about myself, I will be able to be more motivated, less stressed, and go ahead and give in my 100% without much problem or without much stress. Versus if because of my self-concept, because of my lack of confidence in my abilities, I'm extra anxious, I'm too scared, then even if say my performance goes well, but that anticipatory anxiety that I develop for my performance is something that's going to highly change my mood or going to have a lot of effect on the amount of energy I invest in that stress. So this was just to state that the self concept that we hold also about ourselves can have an impact, right? Okay, so these are basic things that we feel can affect our day, can affect our general routine function. Coming down to wearing the right kind of lens, wearing this optimistic kind of lens. Now, what happens when we seem to be wearing this optimistic kind of lens? One, we feel motivated. We're much more encouraged to go ahead and do the tasks at hand. Two, we are more willing to invest in relationships and our social settings. Versus if you're not having a very great day, and this is something that you must have at least experienced or witnessed. When you're not having a great day, when you don't feel so good, you tend to not indulge too much in interaction, social interaction. You tend to keep to yourself, and it's a very natural human tendency to have. So we tend to limit our social interactions, our social, you know, uh, chats that we would have with our friends or even in a professional setting. We tend to isolate ourselves if you're wearing the wrong kind of lens versus if you're wearing the right kind of lens. We are more keen in investing in our relationships and our interactions. Then we seem to be finding joy in daily meaningful life experiences. So if you're having a good day and say you're wearing the right kind of lens, you might wake up in the morning and feel good for no apparent reason, right? It might just be because, okay, you have a good productive day and you're excited to go ahead with your day. And in the evening, maybe you have something that you've been waiting for, some event that you've kept with your family, or a video call with your friends, or a book that you want to start reading, or a book that you're finishing, so on and so forth, right? So these things can have an impact if we are feeling good, if you're feeling motivated, and all of them work in a cycle. So if you're wearing the correct kind of lens, you feel more motivated, you feel more confident, you feel like engaging more, you feel like indulging in things more. And the same way, when you do all of these things, it in turn makes you feel more motivated, makes you feel more positive. So it's like a cycle that goes on, right? It's the same thing with not feeling that optimistic. Now, while there can be a number of reasons for us to feel optimistic and positive, do we always have these optimistic and positive days? Probably not. Even if we have someone who we claim to be the most optimistic, jolly person that we know, even that person might be experiencing some unpleasant or negative days, right? First thing is for us to realize and understand that and accept that. It's okay for us to have bad days. It's okay for us to not be 100% optimistic all the time. It's okay if we feel like today our energy level is not as high as it was yesterday, or it will be tomorrow, and that's fine. Till the time we don't accept and acknowledge how we are feeling, we might not be able to change it effectively, right? So, what happens when we are not having a good day, when we're actually having a bad day? It might be because of expectations we set with ourselves and did not achieve our goals. It can be because of fights with family or friends. It can be because we are confused about too many things. We are feeling too much. We have too many things coming up in our future days. It could be because we have been feeling off, we've been feeling frustrated, irritation, agitated. It could be because you're physically not feeling well and that has an impact on your negative mental health. It could be because of the experiences that you're having with your friends. And of course, it could be with the feelings of isolation, feelings that I don't have people around me who understand me, feelings that I wish I wasn't in a lockdown so I could go out and meet my friends, and so on and so forth. It could be a lot of reasons why one might be having a bad day, right? What happens when one is having this bad day? What happens when we're wearing the wrong kind of lens? We tend to worry excessively. Now, normally, if you were not feeling so gloomy or not feeling so low, you would probably look at things with a different light. So, say if you had a bad meal, or if you had got 8 out of 10 in your test, you would probably not look at this as a major failure if you are feeling optimistic, if you're feeling all right. Versus if you're feeling negative, if you're feeling low for a very long time, and let's say you're wearing the wrong kind of lens, A small meal gone wrong will also be like a big backlash to your day. One 8 out of 10 in your test is going to make you feel like the world is over, like it's your fault, right? Which leads to self blame or blaming others, which is again something which is counterproductive. So, starting with uh, excessive worry, uh, having a negative mental pattern, things like having self blame, blaming other people, wanting to isolate yourself, saying things like, it's always me, I'm the problem, I will not be able to do this, I will never be able to get through this, or I'm unlucky. All of these negative thoughts which come around in our head and start playing. And this happens to everyone, right? It happens to people at different varying degrees, but it certainly happens to everyone, right? And it's also important that we understand that. What can we do then to remove this dark lens and pick up the clearer white lens? We need to, number one, recognize the negative thinking patterns. The reason you and I are sitting here today and talking about optimism is because we need to understand and recognize these negative thought patterns that all of us undergo, right? And number two, make efforts, considerable conscious efforts to be able to bring about that positive change. Now, when I say positive change over here, there is no one simple technique that we can use that's going to bring out positivity for all of us, or that's going to help all of us not feel negative. Different things work for different people. It's important that we at least acknowledge our own strengths and weaknesses and realize what is it that we require in this moment. There are certain people who, as I said, deal better when they give themselves time, when they think about a problem, when they analyze the solutions, and then they bring about a positive change. There are certain people who feel like they get too overwhelmed if they're handling something in isolation, so they tend to take help of the people around them. It could be friends, it could be family, parents, teachers, counselors, or maybe just one particular person that they know and they can trust. Whatever helps us bring about a positive change in our attitude is what we need to look at. And as I said, and I'm stressing again, it could be different things for different people, right? Okay, coming down to how can we actually develop this optimism? How can we become positive? Number one, focusing on the things that we can control. As ma'am very rightly put it, the Benjamin Franklin quote that she stated also talks about bringing about a change, a positive change in things that are happening inside us. Because it's important that we realize that not a lot of things will always be in our control. A very generic example is of the pandemic. We're all in a state of a lockdown. Everybody has to do things differently. We're all adapting to the change at our own pace. Till when will the lockdown go on? We don't have an idea. Till when will the pandemic continue? We don't know. Is this something that we can control? Not at all. Can we change our own routine, our own behavior, our own days? Probably yes. And that is what we need to focus on. So number one is that look at a problem and understand there will always be things which will be out of our hand and there will always be things which will be in our hand. An optimistic person wearing a positive lens would try to focus, and I'm not saying it comes easily, but try to focus on the things which are well within our control. So if I have an exam that I'm giving and I'm stressed about my exam, what about the situation is in my control? Getting marks, giving the marks is not in my control. My teacher's reaction to my papers is not in my control. When I give the paper and if I forget something, that's not in my control. What is in my control? Preparing for that exam, giving myself enough breaks, learning from my setbacks and the past mistakes, and then giving in my 100%. So, this versus that. Whatever it is that I can manage and handle, I will try to focus and work towards that. And whatever it is that is not in my control, I will shift my focus from that. That's number one. Number two, as I said, is recognizing the negative thinking patterns. So, pessimistic thinking, for example, being I'm a constant failure or no one understands me, to an optimistic thinking pattern saying, I have been struggling with this for too long. Maybe I need to help myself. Or, yes, I've been facing a challenging situation. Maybe it's time I take help from someone. Or this problem or this failure is not a personal failure for me, but let me look at the situation differently. So, identifying these pessimistic, as I said, thought patterns and thinking patterns and changing them into hopeful and optimistic patterns, right? Another thing that we can do is develop self awareness. I already spoke about our self concept playing a role in shaping our days and our moods. Self awareness over here plays a major role because it helps us understand and identify our strengths and our weaknesses. By strengths and our weaknesses here, I don't mean specific strengths and weaknesses related to a failure. I just mean understanding your own patterns, your values, your coping strategies. How do you feel when you're in a conflicted situation versus how are you when you're happy? What do you need to do if you feel like there is a stressor or a problematic situation that has been persisting for too long? Are you somebody who wants to deal with it at their own pace? Are you somebody who has trouble handling stress so they need help? Are you somebody who's good or bad at a particular skill or at a particular subject and you need to work on that? Right? Different people will have different skill sets and have different character strengths. When I was back in school, I was terrible at maths. Terrible at maths. That did have, an impact at the way I viewed my self-concept, at my confidence levels, and even my performance in the subject at later years. But the time I realized, and this was fairly in senior school. So when I was in middle school, I was just like you all, worried about lots of things happening, and I was worried about exams and subjects and not doing well, and friends and so many other changes that were coming along. By the time I reached to senior school, I realized that I need to take it one step at a time. I need to also understand the person I am. My personality is developing. I need to understand I might be good at five things and not good at five things. I might be good at four things and not good at six things, and that's okay. Similarly, I might be good at biology, but I'm not so good at math. And it took me a while to realize that and then develop skills that I had to for becoming better at that subject. So, for example, I started taking extra classes. I started allotting a lot more time to the subject. I started taking help from my friends, and I started not marking one incorrect answer of a sum as a personal failure. So this was only when I understood the fact that yes, I am good at these things, I'm not so good at these things, and when it comes to maths, I probably need to work a little harder. This was just a small example, right? When we tend to understand and identify our own skill set, we also become more motivated to bring about a change. So, learning, as I said, from our setbacks, being hopeful, but at the same time being realistic, right? Okay, these were a few generic tips that we talk about when we look at positivity and optimism. Now, when do you say, what can we do to stay positive? What can we do that is in our control to be able to persist this feeling of positivity and optimism? I will answer all the questions. I can see a very interesting question in the chat box. Moving to the final part of the session, and then I can, pick up all the questions that we have. How do we persist this sense of positivity? Number one is stay connected with your family and friends. Stay around your relationships, even if sometimes you feel like you're not the kind of person who would want to share your problems with people. It's always good to know that you have people around you when you are yourself dealing with the problem. So invest in your relationships, build on your support system. Uh, of course, be there for yourself, but allow others to be there for you too. A lot of these sessions that I take with young students such as yourself, they tell me that sometimes, we try and not reach out to our friends and family members because they jump into giving us solutions. And while that's completely natural, because the people who care about us, who want to be there for us, want us to not feel stuck. So they want to present all the best possible solutions. In such a situation, I think it's important that we understand that, okay, they're doing it because the intent is good or they're trying to help us. And number two, we can be very clear in our communication when we're reaching out to our family, parents, friends, teachers, and let them know that I'm talking to you just because I need a good ear to listen. And I'm talking to you just because I want you to be a friend. I don't want you to give me a solution to my problem. I just want you to be there for me. And that works. It has worked and it will work, right? So coming back to investing in your relationships to maintain that positivity, to stay optimistic. Number two is pursuing hobbies. Now, a lot of us must have in number of hobbies. Invest in those hobbies, especially right now during the lockdown period. Give yourself time to study, stay productive, do some leisure activities, and then invest a little bit of time in hobbies also. Whatever it was that you liked when you were younger, or the kind of skills that you felt you would want to develop and you haven't, pick up those things. Invest in those hobbies. It will keep you productive, it will keep you engaged, and it will help you stay positive. Then is indulging in activities like sports or art making. Sports, because they involve physical activities, is a great way to stay healthy both physically and mentally. Given the current situation, we understand that it's not possible to go outside and play the outdoor games. So what we could do is find alternative solutions for them inside our houses. So what can you do right now in your house? You can't go and play football outside. Maybe you could do a little bit of workout routine for 15, 20 minutes inside. You can't go running or cycling outside. Maybe we could start a dance workout for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Maybe we can involve our friends or our cousins or our sisters or parents, whoever we are living with right now, to join in with us. So that will help us share a moment of joy, and that will also help us invest, in the relationship and in a physical activity. So bring about that physical mental hygiene balance by indulging in a physical activity during your day, and also indulge in artwork. So when I say artwork, a lot of times people think, I'm not a great artist. I don't like music so much. I can't sing. I'm not a great dancer. So indulging in artwork by yourself for leisure, it's very different from trying to develop an art skill. So if I say pick up a paintbrush and start painting, I don't mean that you need to paint something exceptionally aesthetic and then you need to share it, because you're not getting graded on this. When I say enjoy art making, also because I'm a creative arts therapist, I want to highlight on the fact that art making in general is a very refreshing, a very calming process. So I hold these live sessions every morning, every day in our through our department as art therapists. We hold these art therapy live sessions on Instagram every day, wherein we sit for 40 minutes, 50 minutes, and we do an art activity live. What that does is, throughout our schedule, one, this is a part of our routine, and two, it gives us that time to ourselves when we're actually indulging in the art making process, which is very, very relaxing. So find something like that for yourself, and it doesn't just have to be coloring and painting and drawing. It could be music, it could be listening to your favorite songs, it could be moving around in your room trying to dance, it could be writing. Creative writing is one way. So invest in, if you're interested in poetry, invest in poetry writing, poetry reading, all of these different forms of art that will help you feel refreshed, that will help channelize your energy, right? Okay. Then it's about creating opportunities. So when you feel joyful, as I said, you get motivated, you are interested in doing a lot many things. So create those joyful experiences for yourself during your day. If you feel like, especially during this lockdown, the days have been very boring, the classes and the same routine over and over again, which is also something that many of us might be feeling, create joyful experiences for your day by yourself. Maybe wake up one morning and prepare breakfast for your family. Maybe start a book that you've been meaning to read from a very long time. Maybe keep a virtual video call with your friends at some point where you feel all of you can find the time to invest in these little joyful experiences that help you look forward to your day in a different light, right? Okay. Then it's, of course, about practicing gratitude. Now, I'm sure we all understand what gratitude means. And here, I don't mean for you to go and tell thank you to everyone who's around you, but acknowledging the fact that you have people around you, acknowledging the fact that you have been doing brilliantly, and giving that sense of appreciation for yourself and others. So, simple techniques that we could share, of course, include writing a letter, writing a small note to somebody, even yourself, acknowledging and appreciating how well you've done. It could mean making a small phone call to somebody and saying, you know what, I spoke to you that day, it was great, thank you. It could mean before going to sleep, maybe writing down a list of things you're proud of that you did with yourself, or writing down a list of the people you feel are there for you. Because gratitude not just helps us stay positive, it also makes us appreciate things and the efforts of people around us, including our own selves. Right. So that is the attitude of gratitude that we can practice. And finally, reach out. It's very important that we understand that for maintaining our mental health, we need to be able to seek help and reach out to people. If you feel like you're not doing well, if you feel like you need to speak to somebody, and it doesn't always have to be a counselor, it could be a friend, it could be a family member, it could be your counselors. And of course, if you feel like you don't want to talk to anyone around you and maybe you could use professional help, then reach out and speak to a psychologist. But it's always better out than in. It's always better to hear our thoughts down, either written on a paper or talking to somebody else, rather than just making them spiral down in your own minds, right? And finally, if you're talking about reaching out and seeking help, you can also seek joy by being that person for other people. So, just like when we would reach out to a friend, we would expect them to listen. If somebody reaches out to us, it's important that we are sensitive and responsible in our approach. As individuals who understand what mental health is, as young people who are sensitive towards one another, who want to invest in their relationships, I think it's very important that we realize that more and more people will reach out and seek help if we provide a way that is accepting to them, that makes them feel that they're being listened to and they are not being judged. And not always, as I said, do we have to provide a solution. Sometimes people who reach out to us just want us to listen to them and be there for them, and also not belittle or discount their problems. So if you have a friend who comes to you crying because she or he had a fight with their friend, and you feel like this is not something that would make you cry, it's okay. It's okay for you to not sit there and tell them, oh, you're crying at such a small thing, you don't have to. If you feel like the problem means a problem to the other person, sometimes all we can do is just be compassionate and just be sensitive, right? Okay, which brings us to now the final part of this session is when you wear a positive lens, when you do all of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pointers that I mentioned, when you try and remove the dark lens, pick up the lighter lens, the clearer lens, what happens to us? So, number one, you're in a position to handle stress much better, both physically and psychologically. Just like our mental health affects our physical health can also affect our mental health. Understanding that and keeping that in mind, if we are too overwhelmed by emotions, it tends to start affecting our physical functionality also. So you would be develop better immunity, develop more stress effective approaches when you are more positive and feeling more motivated. It also helps you deal with challenging situations with a persistent approach. So going back to my example, in when I was in school and for say the subject of maths, when I would do maths otherwise when I was in middle school and I would get one sum wrong, I would immediately start crying, feel too overwhelmed, feel too discouraged, think this is not for me, I'm a bad student, I'm a bad scholar, and all of those negative downward spiral thoughts. Versus when I started taking help, when I started identifying that this is what I need to do and this is how I will probably get better at it, one answer gone wrong would not mark as a failure for me. It then made me feel okay, this one answer was wrong, I'll try again and I'll do better. So it made me feel more persistent, it made me feel more confident in even dealing with challenges in a more better manner, right? Okay, so that is largely what we understand and what we need to talk about when it comes to optimism. I can see a lot of you have your questions here, which I would like to take up. But by and large, this is what optimism means. It means being realistic and it means being hopeful. It does not mean that we have to always keep smiling. It does not mean that we have to run away from our problems. It does not mean that we can't tackle things which are challenging. It simply means acknowledging good days for good days and bad days for bad days and having an approach that keeps us going. Right? Okay. I will read a few comments that I have here in the chat box. Somebody says, when I try to make everyone and everything around me positive and happy and at peace, and I do not succeed, how do I not let that affect me and my happiness and peace? Locus of control. Understand you will not be able to change everything. Sometimes we are passionate about helping people around us and we want to do things, but you need to understand you can only do so much for the other person. The effort and the intent also needs to come from that person from within. So you can be there for them, you can be understanding, as I said, you can be non-judgmental, you can tell them that you are there if they need any kind of solution and assistance from you, but beyond that the effort needs to be made from the individual, and it's very important that we understand that for ourselves, that you will not be able to control everything. Okay. Um, what if they are not interested in listening to us? I don't know with respect to what is this question, but if you're talking about reaching out and being there for somebody, and if you feel that the person is not interested, that's completely okay. The point of you reaching out to somebody and telling them that you're available is so that they feel better, right? And if you feel that at that point the person needs their space, it's okay to let them know that they can have their space, but they also have you to call or text or talk to when they need. Okay. How do we handle pressure, especially during exams? Take a deep breath. No one exam is going to define your life or your success or your goals. However, prioritize. So give yourself time. As I said, know your strengths and weaknesses. Prioritize for exams. Exams are scheduled well in advance. They don't suddenly drop the bomb on you and tell you have an exam tomorrow. Have a schedule, have a routine for yourself. Understand what subjects need more attention, what subjects do not. When I say prioritize, I also mean limit the time for other things otherwise. So your TV intake, your gaming, your playing, your extracurricular activities, adjust that accordingly so that you a lot more time to your studies, because during exams that is what's necessary. And if you feel like despite of your effort you are having difficulty, you are having trouble dealing with this, then you reach out to family and friends, and if need be, reach out to a mental health expert. How to stop overthinking? It has very negative consequences. Overthinking is something which is very common in a lot of people. It is something that makes us feel discouraged and makes us feel like very bleak, makes us feel like, there isn't a lot of solution to a lot of my problems, which might be the case at one time. And of course, this is something that can still be changed. I feel for everyone who indulges in overthinking, the one technique that I can say is start venting it out. Because the more and more it's left inside you, the more it doesn't find a space to breathe, and it sort of consumes one person. And it's very, very draining, very, very exhausting mentally. So, whatever it is that you're feeling, if you're having a good day, if you're having a bad day, if you're having a terrible day, bring that out. So whether you listen to music, put on your earphones, headphones, speakers, and dance around, and channelize that emotion, works great. If you feel like you want to start writing because it's too much feeling, doesn't mean you don't have to be a great poet, you don't have to be a great writer. You can simply start writing down your thoughts. What happens when you write down your thoughts is also it conceptualizes your thinking, your experience, and it makes you see something that you have tangibly in front of you. So it gives you a different perspective about what your problem is, not just when you're thinking and now when it's out down on the paper. It's the same way that talking and reaching out helps. When you hear your own thoughts, it gives you a different kind of perspective. It also makes you see the way you are looking at the problem, right? And also, as I said, don't let it build up. Overthinking is called overthinking because it becomes thinking which has reached to a point where you feel burnt out. So don't let it reach that point. Acknowledge, as I said, your own emotions. Speak out, reach out when you feel like you're struggling. Okay. Uh, there are too many questions, so I'm going to filter them down a little. I'm in 12th, and obviously I like to meet my friends or indulge in my hobbies for some time. However, I feel extremely guilty for having wasted that time. I really want to stop that. A lot of times because of societal pressure or because our own self-inflicted expectations, we tend to put a lot of pressure on ourselves. We tend to put a lot of strain on ourselves, which is why you feel like you need to allot all your time to studying. Personally, we don't recommend studying 24 hours a day. I don't think the teachers recommend that. I don't think the school recommends that. You need to have your routine in check. As I said, you need to be able to prioritize studies during exams, definitely. But apart from that, keep time for other things also. Divide it in portions. Keep time for your sleeping and eating, which is very, very important. And apart from that, keep a little bit of time during your day to do the things that actually help you de-stress. So while studying and preparation for the exams is one thing, on the other hand, what helps you release that kind of stress? What helps you stay refreshed? Invest in those things and plan that for your day. Don't feel guilty. That guilt must be coming from a little bit of fear, a little bit of, as I said, expectations that you've set from yourself. It's okay to do that. Have a plan and try to follow that plan by keeping realistic goals. Don't tell yourself you will finish 10 chapters today. Tell yourself this is the syllabus, this is how you need to categorize, and this is how you will be able to achieve. Set short term goals but realistic goals, because when we have big goals for ourselves and we are unfortunately not able to follow them, we get more discouraged. So it does more harm than good. Okay. Due to the lockdown, most of us have a lot of time and it's very hard sticking to the schedule. And procrastination comes into play. Whenever you plan something and it doesn't work out due to procrastinating, you feel very discouraged, of course, and sit down to make a new timetable. And this goes on and on. How do you deal with this? I think it's very similar to what I just said. Plan a schedule for yourself, but have a realistic schedule set for yourself. Uh, don't tell yourself that on Friday I'm going to be 100% productive and on Sunday I'm going to be zero productive. Don't do that to yourself. Try and not indulge in extremes. Even if you want to save certain days and keep them as more relaxing than the other days, have a set schedule, keeping in mind your school and classes of course. So apart from your school and classes, how many number of hours do you need to allot to your studying and your preparation? Keep that aside. As I said, prioritize. So if there are 10 things you need to do in your day, arrange those 10 things according to the level of importance. Sleep and eating, of course, should take priority, as always. Your studies and your classes should also then come, and then the rest of the things that you need to do during your exams, right? So have a schedule for yourself. Look back at the previous schedules and also ask yourself why you weren't able to follow them in the first place. Was it just procrastination? Again, it's something very common. It's something very normal that all of us go through. But procrastination will become a problem if we don't try to step forward and change that. And otherwise, as I said, don't feel guilty for procrastinating. All of us do that. But then that needs to also be in check. Right? Okay. Since there are a lot of questions, if I could, ma'am, if I could get a little bit of help in filtering out the questions, since there are too many of them, and I don't want to take
Definitely.
me.
Yes, Alina. Definitely, we'll do that. And I'll read out one or two questions that seem to have come in. Most of it, I think you have covered and you have given them a holistic, view of how to actually decipher this very lens, right? So let's see one or two other questions that have come in. What to do, especially during holidays, as we have a mindset to be 0% productive. I think we've already answered that for us. And what do you think about toxic positivity? That is quite a heavy term coming there. So, if you would like to take that on.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you
Okay.
now.
All right. I was saying I would like to give my own understanding of toxic positivity, because this has been a term which is very prevalent recently. A lot of youngsters use it, and it makes me very curious to understand their understanding of toxic positivity.
Correct.
I'm not going to go to buy the book. I'm going to give you sort of an experiential idea. Uh, a lot of times we tend to glorify things in our head. When it comes to being positive and when it comes to stay optimistic, I feel like the need to always be happy is something that again does more harm than good, because as human beings we have a range of emotions that we experience, and that's the case with everyone. So sadness, happiness, anger, frustration, excitement, agitation, fear, so on and so forth, are all different kinds of emotions that innately are experienced by all human beings. So to focus specifically on one type of emotion and negate the value of all the other emotions is also something which I feel is unnatural for a lot of us. A lot of times people tend to hide their anger or feel negative, so-called negative emotions like sadness, like irritation. We try to repress them. And then again, what that does is it makes us feels like imploding from within. So what we need to understand over here is that experiencing these emotions is all right. All of us are human. All of us naturally feel a lot of things. But the way we are acting out that emotion, the way we bring out that emotion is what makes a large difference. So even when we look at the negative emotions like anger and sadness and irritation, feeling that emotion and acknowledging that is all right. But if we take that out in a way that's counterproductive, that's harmful, that's unhealthy to ourselves or other people, that is the problem we need to check, not feeling of the emotion. Why I'm saying this is because just to give a background of why toxic positivity came into being, because as I said, the need to be overtly happy all the time is something that does brings on a lot of pressure. So for any individuals who's having a bad day or a difficult day and they're not so happy, they tend to start telling themselves, I need to constantly be happy. So I need to constantly do things that are making myself happy. That is where I think toxic positivity turns in. Why positivity turns toxic is because we maybe subside all the other emotional that we have on our emotional range platter, and we tend to focus on only one emotion. And because being human, and it's a part of human experience to face things differently, to face your day differently, it tends to then bring about a lot of feelings of shame, of guilt, of being unproductive, of not trying hard enough, of being too hard on your own self. And that's how it goes on. So it's okay, as I said, for you to understand and acknowledge that maybe today was not a great day. Maybe because of my physical health, I'm not feeling that great. Maybe because I got bad marks and I'm not feeling that great. Maybe because I had a breakup, I'm not feeling that great. And it's okay to accept these things for yourself, right? Don't let that positivity is supposed to be like that light at the end of the tunnel. It's supposed to be that hand that your friend gives out to you. It's supposed to be that rope that helps you come up. It's not supposed to turn into toxicity, right? So let positivity be that one shining, guiding light, and acknowledge all the other emotions that you feel and take steps towards that positivity at your own pace.
Right. Thank you so much for that, Alina. And I think so. If I really sum this up, it all boils down to looking at things positively, definitely, but learning this as a skill and realizing this that this is a skill like a muscle can be strengthened. We can learn to hone our optimistic skills and to try and balance things out and do things in moderation in a slightly more planned manner, so that we can try and avoid reaching stages which are extreme kind of optimism or extreme pessimism, and we remain balanced. So there's one more question here that I think maybe as a last question that you could take up for this child, is that seeing the situation right now with the pandemic and everyone is holed up in the houses and with the same family members, there seems to be some pent up frustration with the family members, and the students seem to be sometimes finding it difficult. It's more like it's turned into a helicopter parenting situation, even though maybe the parents don't have that intention, but since they are all around them all the time. So, what is it that the students can do to remain calm, to deal with it, and to deal positively with their family members?
Okay. Very interesting question. Also, something that I feel again all of us have been experiencing. For people who have been living together with somebody in a house, whether that's family, whether that's friends, after a point it does start getting too much. So, the first thing that I'd like to tell you is be kind, be nice to yourself and others. Be nice to yourself by understanding that it's been too long, and of course you need your own space, and otherwise you had all the avenues of going outside, either going shopping or going to movie halls, going just for a run, just for a walk to get that breather. You can't do all of that right now, so it's okay for you to be feeling a little agitated. At the same time, be kind to others and understand that they are going through the exact same thing. So they also need their space. They also need to not have your mood swings around. They also need you to be a little understanding and appreciative, just like you would want them to be, right? It's natural right now for us to have that line between, our personal space and the interaction with family and friends to blur a little, because we are constantly around each other. Also, if there is a disagreement, earlier as I said, we would either go out of the house or do other things to distract us, go out for a run, do other things that are not possible right now. So because that aspect is restricted, as I said, we need to find alternative ways to deal with it. Alternative ways, like if, for instance, say you've indulged in banter with your family or your friends, step out of that situation, give yourself space, give the other person space. In all likelihood, it's just the tension that's overgrown because of all of us being together in each other's personal and professional spaces. Also, there's a saying that says distance makes the heart grow fonder. Sometimes it works because right now there is so less distance amongst everybody. It makes you feel slightly more irritated at the fact that, I'm always seeing this person and they're always around. So that's okay. Don't act on this, is what I'll say again. Don't try and act out on your emotions and your feelings, because as I said, everybody is going through the same thing. And finally, the more you're lying around doing nothing, the more time at hand you will have to get more irritated, to find the free time to indulge in probably a quarrel with somebody or an argument with somebody. So also keep yourself busy. This fear of productivity, I understand, has come up a lot in the lockdown. So I don't mean 100% 24 hours of the day do something, but have a schedule for yourself. So you're also doing your own things, managing your own time personally during at least a large portion of the day, and so on and so forth with the other person in your house. So have that schedule. Then, of course, have your free time and try and stick to what your schedule was pre lockdown as much as you can.
Thank you so much. I think with that, we'll bring the session to a close. And thank you, Alina, for being with us today and sharing very interesting things that students can do practically and how they can focus to learn certain skills to stay on track in this very, very unusual situation that we all are caught in. So, thank you very much once again. Thank you, dear children, for joining us today. I hope you all are taking back something that is going to benefit you and is going to help improve the quality of your life starting today, right? And thanks to the entire team at DPS Bangalore East, all my colleagues who have helped in bringing this session together. Have a lovely evening. Thank you.